Hi everybody, Jane here, and I just recently read a really interesting discussion on Facebook about whether anybody can be a writer, and also if you don't know if you're a writer or you're a beginner, how to develop your writing skills. So I wanted to put my 2 cents into this debate. This is just my opinion, but hopefully it'll help some of you. So, can anybody be a writer? I would say almost everybody can. There's really 2 tests, and if you pass both of them, I would say absolutely 100% you can be a writer. And that first test is, can you tell me a cohesive story? And what I mean by that is, if I were to meet you and we were to go out to lunch, could you tell me something about your life in a cohesive manner that I could understand? Whether it's a date you went on, or the death of a pet, or, you know, the time that you fell at the audition and embarrassed yourself. Whatever it is, if you can tell me that in a cohesive way, you've passed number 1. Number 2, can you imagine things that are not? And this is a little more tricky, but most people can do this. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy or fantastical. If I were to ask you, what would you do if you won the lottery? If you can answer that, you can be a writer. And again, most people can answer that. I know what I'd do if I won the lottery. If you can think of things that don't exist, you can be a writer. All right, so if you want to develop your skills, and you're starting at the very, very bottom, you want to be a writer, but you feel like you are at absolute zero. What I want you to do is start journaling. So write about your day, just in a cohesive, coherent way. Write journal entries every day about the events of your day. What did you do? Who did you do it with? If you had reasons for doing it, why did you do it? Then I want you to start asking yourself questions as you get a little more comfortable with journaling. Ask yourself questions about your life. If I could have a different job, what job would I want? If I won the lottery, what would I want to do with it? If I could have any pet in the world, what would it be and why? Once you've got those down and you've learned to write about yourself, I want you to take the next step. I want you to start reading and asking questions about what you're reading. Now, not questions like, what did this book mean, or what happened in the plot, but things that are not spelled out. For instance, in the story of Cinderella, what would happen if Cinderella didn't like the prince after they met? What would happen if Cinderella didn't adjust to life in the castle? What happened to Little Red Riding Hood after her and her grandma were rescued? There are so many stories, and the books often don't tell the whole story. And, in some cases, it doesn't even have to be an after. It can be a before. What brought the characters to this point? If you love Harry Potter, what are maybe some stories of his growing up? Fan fiction is a great way for young writers to develop skills, and I think that's why so many turn to fan fiction, because they're doing exactly that. They're taking characters and saying, what if? What if these 2 characters were shipped instead of the characters that did get shipped? Or, what if things had gone differently? What if Sirius Black really had been the one to kill Harry's parents instead of Peter Pettigrew? Ask yourself questions and work on answering those in stories. So you're not doing anything crazy. You're using characters you already know. You're using a world you already know, and you're asking those questions. And the purpose of that is to kind of create the neurological pathways in your brain. The next step, and you don't have to take this one, because if you can tell a complete story about characters you probably can jump all the way off the deep end to just write your own stories, because you've already figured out kind of the art of storytelling. But if you're not there yet, try self-inserting, or try inserting your character into a fictional world. Write a new kid at Hogwarts, or, you know, one of the maids at the palace who Cinderella befriends, or a wolf advocate who is not happy that Little Red Riding Hood, you know, killed a wolf or had a wolf killed, depending on which story you read, and their interactions, and Red Riding Hood defending her, well, he ate me. Well, he's a carnivore. What do you expect? If you can insert your own character, you've pretty much got all the basis for telling your own stories. Then you just have to do it. You just have to figure out what story you want to tell. You want to figure out what is happening in your world. What does your world look like? Who are your characters? And make sure you are not bringing too much of the fan fiction stuff over, because you do want to write original stories. You don't want to get in trouble for copyright violations, and you don't want readers to be like, oh, that's too similar. But if you've already been doing all the journaling and everything else, you have created the neural pathways in your brain, and you have gotten your brain trained how to write a story. So then it's just a matter of figuring out what you want to write, writing it, and if it seems like it's a little too close to the fan fiction that you were writing before, tweak it a little. But yeah, that's basically how you learn to write, and I think almost anybody can learn. And you just get good by practice. And I know when I started writing when I was really young, but when I was a teenager, from about 14 to 16, I wrote every day. And I was writing fan fiction like every day. It was as soon as I was done with schoolwork, that's what I did. And then once I hit about 16, I started writing my own novels. And I've been writing since then. Now, I didn't start regularly, daily writing until probably 5 years ago. And now I write 5 days a week, most weeks. And that's how you become a writer. Like, there's no magic formula. You're not naturally born with it, in my opinion. If you can tell a story to me about your life, and you can imagine something that hasn't happened, like winning the lottery and what you would do if you won the lottery, you can be a creative writer. You just have to train yourself. And if you don't want to train yourself, then it's probably not for you. But if you are really passionate about it, just take those steps and you'll get there. You'll get there, you'll put the time in. There is a book called Outliers. And in that book, the writer suggests that to really master a skill, you have to spend 10,000 hours doing it. And I think that's pretty true. And I've heard for writers it's 1,000,000 words to really start mastering the art and craft of writing. So if you feel like you're not really a writer, you probably just need more practice. You're probably a writer, but you just haven't necessarily done everything else that you need to get there. And especially if you went to public school, a lot of the base stuff that they teach you how to journal, they teach you how to tell a cohesive story. They teach you how to imagine things and think about things. I know I had to do that on my 9th grade proficiency test. I think it was like, describe your dream house. If you can do those things, you can write a story. All right, guys, social media is below, so is the like and subscribe button. See you next time. Bye.